Hey folks, we are live for another SEMrush webinar. It's the 12th of August 2020, and at the moment in the UK we're having a heat wave and it is very warm. I hope it's warm wherever you are, guys. If you're in the comments, please let us know where you're viewing from today. We always love to know how far the community spreads. And I'd just like to introduce Randy Milanovic. And Randy, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, otherwise this is a very embarrassing start. How are you doing today, Randy?
I'm doing great, thank you. You're very, very close. Milanovic.
Not too bad then, not too bad. And where are you joining in from today?
I'm in Kamloops, British Columbia, Canada at the moment, about 1,000 kilometers from home.
Oh, nice, nice. And are you on travels, or are you nomadically, digitally working?
Well, I would say nomadically working for the summer, almost living entirely in my camper.
Nice. Well, you've almost pre-introed yourself there a little bit. I'm just going to jump back in and give you a little bit of information on Randy. So Randy is the CEO of Kayak Marketing. He and his company has helped over 550 organizations grow their business. In 2019, you launched Flow Sites to help even smaller businesses get started in the right way. You love craft beer. I love craft beer. Just a quick question. What's your views on sour ales? It's a contentious point. Do you like them or not?
I think they'll go fine with fish. Otherwise, I head for the dark beers.
Perfect. And as you've just said, you've been traveling around in your camper. I've stalked you a bit on Instagram and Facebook, etc. I see you've got pictures of beautiful waterfalls, your amazing Airstream, and you love kayaking. They're all my favorite things to do as well. So, and we're both wearing hats today. I think this is going to be an awesome session. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm Tristam Jarman. I'm co-founder of Purple Smudge down here in sunny Brighton in the UK. But without further ado, Randy, would you like to intro what we're going to be covering today?
Sure. We're going to be doing buyer personas and how to create them, and some tips and tricks about how to do them right.
Perfect. And I see everyone's flooding in the comments. We've got great people coming in. We've got people from Kosovo today, Croatia, New York. So welcome everybody, North Carolina, Mumbai, Minneapolis. We really do have another worldwide audience joining in today. So I'm really excited to get this started. Randy, if you're happy, I think it's time to hand over to you and we can get this started.
Yes, absolutely. Let's do this. I'm going to just go from my remote. Okay, just want to confirm that you can see. Oh, I have to do a share screen. 1 second. A quick juggle of the technology at the last moment there.
There we go.
All right. I just want to confirm everyone can see this.
Well, I can see that perfectly. Over to you, Randy.
Okay, well, first of all, thanks for having me on. And hello, everybody. I'm so glad we all made it in today. And thank you, Tristam, for hosting this webinar. It's very cool to share so many interests with you, especially the craft beer part. We'll have to get you to Canada someday. I'll take you in the Rockies and whatnot. That'll be kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely.
So today, we're talking about buyer personas, and that's some very exciting stuff. We only have about an hour, so I'll get right to it. Obviously, we could talk about this for a little more than an hour, but also I understand that the presentation, along with my speaker notes, will be available on the SEMrush webinars page a bit later. So anybody who wants to take a long look at it or check out the links that I've included in it, they can do that at any time. And finally, just to let everybody know, I am available on Kayak 360, which is my Twitter account, and you can DM me or talk to me publicly or whatever you want over there, really any time. All right, so we're going to get into it. So as Tristam said, I'm Milanovic, I'm the CEO of Kayak Marketing. For those that haven't bumped into me maybe way back on Google Plus or on Facebook, I not only do marketing with Kayak, but we also have Flow Sites, which is a WordPress-based platform for small businesses where templates are already installed and people just add comments, so it's really easy access. So anybody needs that, please jump on that. I'm also a certified HubSpot partner, or a partner agency, and we have been since 2011. Now, in 2018, we got lucky and we got to platinum level, which was pretty cool. Like, we got a bit of a trophy, which was nice. And I'm gonna, with the background, I'm gonna lean on and share some of their material in today's presentation. Now, don't worry, we've got some in-house secrets to share as well, including a few recent articles, which is what you see on the screen right now. So it's available on Amazon. My team and I, as Tristam said, have the pleasure of working with, I'd say, about 550, 560 companies now to develop their buyer personas, improve their marketing results, and grow their companies. Yes, it's marketing. After all, buyer personas are strongest when developed in collaboration with sales, marketing, and your operations teams. When everyone is aligned, it's definitely spreading. So talk about what a buyer persona is today. So buyer personas are semi-fictional representations of the people you want to do business with. And buyer personas are your secret key to driving real business growth. They help you focus your efforts on qualified prospects, guide product and service development to suit the needs of your customers, and align efforts between your marketing and sales and operations teams. Regardless of what stage your company is in, you can create insightful buyer personas or profiles of them that represent people you want to work with, along with their influencers. That's an interesting side that influencer personas, very important. Anyway, content crafted to your buyer personas will help to attract highly qualified visitors, leads, and customers. And it'll filter out those less desirable because they just will see that it's not for them. Now, best of all, these good types of leads are really interesting. They're more likely to retain you over time joyfully because they're a benefit for your business. When creating your buyer personas, you'll want to consider a mix of both demographics and psychographics, especially psychographics. The more you know about what excites, scares, annoys, or even angers them, the better. Because with that intel, craft message, you connect with your prospects incredibly well. A quick side note here, you've probably also heard the term ideal client when talking about personas. Just to clarify, buyer personas are profiles of the key people who work at your ideal client companies. So buyer personas are people, ideal clients are companies. Just before we go on to the next one, I just want to remind everybody that I'm quite happy to take a question between slides if anybody has one, and I don't mind if it goes off the rails a little bit. Okay, so Tristam, feel free to interrupt me. All right.
No worries.
Excellent. Okay, before we dive into the buyer persona creation process, let's consider the impact a well-developed buyer personas can have on your business. Buyer personas help you to understand your customers and prospective customers much better. No hunches or gut feelings required. Personas are created from real information that represent a real person or persons, and they can be data-driven. Of course, this is where SEMrush comes in. All right, this makes it easier for you to tailor your content, your messaging, product development, and services to meet the needs of your specific audience without getting lost in the weeds of trying to please everyone. Here's an example, quick stat. Net Prospects optimizes its website based on their buyer personas to create a customized visitor experience. The effort resulted in a 900% increase in visit duration. That's incredible. An increase of 171% in marketing generated revenue. Okay, you'll find that on more personas on the SEMrush blog. There's a really in-depth article on personas available right now. Okay, so good news is that personas aren't that difficult to create. It's all about how you obtain your market research and customer data, and then share and present that information with your team. For example, You may know your target buyers are say, managers, but do you know what their specific needs and interests are? Ask yourself, what's the typical background of your ideal buyer? What's their life stage? Are they just starting to have kids? Are they retiring? What are their biggest concerns? What secret desires? What do they fear? Okay, do you see any commonalities when you look across your existing customers or even the desired customers want? Okay, now the strongest buyer personas are based on market research paired with insights that you can gather from real customers through surveys, interviews, net promoter scores, reviews, even informal chats with them. Depending on your business, you could have as few as 1 or 2 personas, or you could have several. If you're new to personas, I recommend starting with 2. You can develop additional personas over time as needed. I personally like to develop personas in pairs because people don't often make decisions in a bubble. Okay? Being aware who influences your ideal buyer is smart. And once you get a sense of their relationship, you can work to create content, prompt engagement and dialogue, and interest in your products and services as a result. Now, I'm not talking about social media influencers here or your famous people. I'm talking about coworkers, spouses, and other close-in people they look up to and value the opinions of. I also like to develop personas based on their role in the business. For example, let's imagine a persona who's in an executive role. Their decision-making focus is going to be quite different. For example, does it result in market share or market growth from somebody in middle management who may be thinking, will it achieve good results for the budget I've been assigned? This is just focus going to differ from somebody in operations who may be thinking, is my workspace comfortable and do I love my job? Okay, 3 very different folks from very unique roles in the organization. If you understand which one you're dealing with, you know the conversation that you might have with them. All right, so the understanding role you're prospecting in is equally important to shaping the conversation you might have or might avoid with them. And I say avoid because you can imagine if you're talking to a business leader and you're talking about workspace comforts, it's probably not going to resonate or be that meaningful to them, and vice versa. Okay, also that in larger organizations, there may be multiple personas, even a buying committee full of decision makers and each with their own focus. I'm curious, have you ever seen somebody in IT have the exact same priority as their colleague in finance?
I can answer that with an exact no. That's always an interesting one, I find. Like, what do you do in a situation where you have conflict between departments in a company? So, the example you gave there, Department X thinks this is their audience, and Department Y thinks thinks something completely different. Yeah, that's why I'm really interested in this whole presentation today, because that's such a point of contention. Finance people and accountants think in a certain but a methodical process, and certainly an IT department will think in a different process. But to answer your question, no, they don't think the same. They don't want necessarily the same outcomes or think that their customer profile is exactly the same.
That's right, and if we think about this for a moment, we can even consider them a customer profile. You could take a look at the IT person, and that they're going to be very, very up and concerned on things of security and longevity and stability, because they don't want anything to go wrong, because it could be their job. You take a look at somebody in finance, and they're just making sure they get the best value for the money. Sometimes, or not necessarily most times, but quite often, they're looking at the lowest dollar for the biggest bang. And the security thing versus the budget thing, they don't jibe at all. So quite often what we'll have to do is have to go into each one and really interview them and find out what their needs are. They're all what their roles, what their needs, what their thoughts are, their fears, the whole thing, and understand them so that we have a different conversation with each one There's a friend of mine, Mark Tasca, based in Calgary, Canada. He talks about this as conversational fluency, meaning you change your conversation based on who you're talking to. Not you're changing the nature of your conversation, but you're just addressing that person's needs. Okay, and we can do that, of course, through content. And if you could imagine, if you're doing a content piece, you could have even information within the IT area or area of content that addresses finance. So the IT can have a conversation with finance related to the project, and vice versa. So that happens quite often, and it's a great way to kind of bridge the gap, and you get them talk together, sorting before they go head to head. Okay, so ultimately, the idea is the more you know, the better. All right, so this is a really, really valuable stat. So 93% of companies that exceed lead and revenue goals segment their database by buyer persona. This is from an article on Marketing Insider. So reasons their buyer personas aren't good enough. Okay, segmentation is an absolutely fantastic way to organize your lead data. Segmentation allows you to tailor your marketing to a person contacts, making it more effective, meaning you're not just sending mass emails to everybody, you're effectively doing one-on-one or one in small groups, so they can be much more valuable and resonate with those individuals. And of course, then they respond to it better. So segmentation is an aspect of understanding your persona. You could say persona. You send IT one letter, you send finance a different letter, and then they respond versus the same letter both. Next, that makes pretty much sense, but amazing how many people don't think about that. All right, so you can create and improve or refine your buyer personas if you have them already. So I always want to start with what we already know and expand from there. So what we already know is the information that we have in our database on our existing clients. Okay, from that point out, we can go out further. I'm not sure if anybody here is familiar with Dan Kennedy's Letter. It's a book. It's incredibly famous. I'm sure everybody knows about it. But my friend Joel Kletke, who, by the way, about a year ago rewrote HubSpot's website, and I think he doubled their conversion rate. Killer guy, Joel Kletke. You got to look him up. Okay, he reminded me of a few questions from Dan Kennedy's sales letter that I think is really important in developing personas. These 4 questions are asking really important questions that go to their soul. One example would be to ask yourself what keeps them awake at night, eyes staring up at the ceiling. Imagine if these concerns keep them awake, how a promise to solve them might shake them by the collar and get them to act. It also asks them what they're afraid of. Now, fear is a powerful motivator. We'll do almost anything to distract ourselves from it or make it go away, including buying. That's a killer line. I love that Joel shared that with me. Also, we want to ask what they're angry about, or perhaps they're angry at. When I talk about this, I talk about government, the weather, anything that might impact their business or their daily life. Okay, it takes them anger. So if there's a common enemy like that within, it might be regulation. You know, it could be anything. It's again one more thing to have in common with them that you can share and to be honest with you. And the 4th one that I feel is really important is to learn what their top 3 daily frustrations might be. These are the things that frustrate them that they pay to get rid of. Okay, you'd want to think about this, of course, in the context of your solutions. Somebody says they can't get anything done, and you provide scheduling management software, then can help things a little bit better. Sorry, I should have had an example ready. Anyway, so I love those questions. You know, when we dig into what makes them, motivates them from an emotional level, that's really, really powerful intelligence. All right, so and my second one would be, of course, I mentioned at the start of this, is to look through your existing data. So you look at your CRM, look for trends around how your best leads or customers find and consume your content. Now, you might be looking at Google Analytics or Search Console. You might be looking at your CRM. You might be using a tool like SEMrush. You might be going into HubSpot, which is phenomenal information on individual visitors and looking for trends. Just a side note for people, I have a blog post on my site that talks about meta-analysis. Please take a look at it. It's about 3 or 4 blogs ago, and it's basically borrowing a technique from the medical community. All right, number 3 is to integrate.
Sorry there, Randy.
Yeah.
I'm just going to jump in because I love tip number 2.
Yes.
Looking at data you already have. You know, I've got my own company now, but I work with multiple companies at the moment. I've worked in-house agencies, and I find it surprising still from yesteryear even to now that people who, you know, marketers, people that run companies, website owners, they're not even looking necessarily at Google Analytics data, or maybe they're not aware that something as simple as Google Analytics data can uncover so much about, you know, the customers, what they're doing on site. You know, I know there's the demographics section in Google Analytics, and I'm sure someone will jump in here now into the comments and say that's not 100% accurate. But what I always think is, although, you know, that data isn't 100% accurate, it's more than not having any data. So you're making some form of a smarter decision. And I think that's sort of the premise of this discussion today that we're having, is that you're able to sort of, you know, if it's like almost like a deck, you know, you're starting off with one slide of information, that's some Google Analytics data. And as you said, Google Search Console, both of those are free. You haven't got to pay for those. And those little bits of data, and as, you know, I don't want to reveal too much more of the presentation, but there are other elements that we can start to build on. I just out of curiosity, do you still find that working with people that they're not necessarily utilizing just some of the basic data they have without, you know, using tools like SEMrush, HubSpot, and more sort of paid for subscribed tools?
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people are just guessing. And a lot of times what they do is they project themselves into their personas. I see this all the time. They go, oh, you know, somebody like me would do this. And they believe that that's going to be their persona. And then they realize that that person doesn't buy. And they don't realize that they've done themselves.
Yeah, I've come across that. Go on, sorry.
Yeah, and I think another thing too is people look at trending in too short of a term. So I look at trending 3 months or more. I don't like to look at trending much shorter. If I was doing retail a lot, I would probably look weekly. But if I'm doing business to business or a branding or anything like that, I'm looking for trending over a longer term. I want to see where it's going, and so I can predict what's happening. I want to see people's appetite for a certain type of content. I want to use tools like HubSpot that watch the individual go through your site and map out their journey so that you can see how they're using your site. You can go in and you can make refinements to clear the path, so to speak, so they get to where they're going in the proper, efficient way, but they still have the information they need. I'm always looking at these things, and what I find a lot of times is people will get a tool and they'll kind of set it and forget it, and they don't go back and look at it, and they don't realize when there's a hole. Like even with Google Analytics, you see also there's a drop off at a certain page, and if you were just to look at the page, you might find that you missed a link and put a link in or something like that because it's human error, or an image was corrupted or something on that page, and so it turned people off. Or something that like this happens. Worse, it jumps to a new window and they think they've got a spam site going on. And so it's so important to watch the data and see what's going on and seeing how people use your site, how people get to you. It really helps you not only qualify, but also disqualify as you see people use the site. Now, one of my favorites is there's two visitor behavior patterns that I see all the time. One is that an individual comes to a website, hits the home page, goes straight to contact, maybe a brief second on a service page, hits contact and either phone or fill out the form. That's one behavior. And another behavior I see all the time is people come into a site and they hit 100 pages and they may not hit contact, but they'll hit a download. And so, of course, one of them is somebody who's acting and wants to make contact, and the other one is a researcher. And by the way, that's the background behind my book, The Art of Flow. is that other 95% of people that aren't making contact right now, they're researching in preparation for making a contact or a purchase. It's really important to pay attention to how they use your site. That's the really important one. If somebody's coming to buy from you, it's good. You don't have to worry so much about it. Now, there's also an interesting thing is if they spend little or no time on your service page, it's very likely that they just want to know what the price is, and they're really concerned about too much more than that. So your phone call that you get from that is not going to be highly qualified, which is really important in personas. We want qualified. If that same individual visited the service page and then visited an about page or your executive page and then visited contact, it would be entirely different, because the person or people visit an about page because they're considering doing business with you. So that's very different than somebody visits your product page and goes straight to your contact. So be aware of the behaviors, and you will never see these if you don't use the data. Okay. I went on a tangent there. I think back.
No, I was enjoying it. We do have
good.
a quick question that's coming from Elham. They've asked, hi, when you want to convince a new client to build their buyer persona for the first time, do you emphasize on return on investment that they will get from it, or how it makes their marketing more clear and organized? And this is for an Indian-based client.
Yeah, I probably would start just by asking them if they want higher quality leads. I'd just start there. I mean, if they love the quality of leads they have, then I guess they're going to be satisfied. If you want to have quality leads and maybe less spin or less churn on customers, or better engagements, longer engagements, then they pretty much have to know their client better and stop guessing.
So you're almost building the, we'll call it client persona. You're building the client persona to understand the client, to then build the customer persona. So it's sort of a chain reaction there. So Elham, you need to understand your client's needs, and then what your client's needs are from their customers. So yeah, it's sort of a bit of a chain reaction then.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I really believe in win-win-win solutions. So we need to understand our clients to make sure that we can help them improve their situation, because of course that's why they're working with us. And we need to understand their client so that they can do the same thing for their client. Okay, of course, when doing that, then we win. So all three of us, the customer, the client, and ourselves, we all win. There's no losers in that.
Perfect. The perfect scenario, I guess.
That's the idea, and it's actually what we've built our business on. Is we don't take on clients that don't give in that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. When I guess without going off on a tangent myself, you know, well, yeah, that's what you said there. Only working with clients who kind of have a clear picture or direction of, you know, what they want and who their customer is. It sort of saves, a lot of to and fro, and then possibly not landing that client because they don't entirely know what they want themselves. So yeah, all sort of part of the bigger process, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a fun little exercise we do when we're creating personas, and that's the naming exercise. And I love doing iterations, like marketer Mary. I'll just throw that out there for fun. I think it was one of HubSpot's, but just the iteration of the 2 M's is enough to make it memorable. And then you have a nice clear persona. Later on, talking with your colleagues, you just say, you know, we're writing our content or doing a creative to marketing Mary. They know exactly who talking to, so almost like they're writing for a real human being, which is really important just to get that in your head.
Awesome.
All right, so I'll go through a couple more tips here. So one of my favorites is qualifying questions. So when we do forms, we like to start with a qualifying question. Now you could imagine if you suspect or believe that your ideal buyers have a common, say, challenge, you can ask them a qualifying question about what their biggest challenge might be at the top of a contact form, or even from a download, an offer. Okay, and then watch for patterns in how they respond. So you could pre-fill 4 or 5 that you believe fit with your persona and maybe one that doesn't, and see which ones they pick, and see if you can see patterns in how they respond. When you get that information, you can then further refine your personas to incorporate those insights. So, and it's one of my favorite ways of just tweaking and tweaking and tweaking and getting who we work with. For example, as a HubSpot partner, one of our core items is we know that we need to work with an organization that has 2 or 3 internal team members in their marketing department. If they have fewer, chances are they have the resources to work with us. If they have more, chances are they start to silo, and they're not executing marketing. They become in silos and become their own little groups, and it's not as connected as it should be or coordinated as it should be. So it's not as successful as an engagement. So we might ask, how many marketers do you have on your team? Very simple question, and almost everybody would answer that. Okay, so we get to see what's going on. And so it's one way, not only for qualifying, but also for disqualifying. If they said 25, they're probably not going to be a good fit. We just would consult them instead. You might want to consider what questions are relevant and related to your business type, of course. Okay, their answers, again, provide you with wonderful segmentation data. All right, now this is another one that's fairly common, and it's funny because oftentimes if you look at large organizations, you'll find sales does their thing and marketing does their thing, and sales gets all the love because they're making the money, and marketing kind of doesn't get any love because they're just spending money. Well, we know that's not the truth, but that's the common perception. So one of the things that I like to encourage my clients to do is take their marketing team and go straight to the sales team, ask them questions, and find out what's going on the front line. Find out what insights that they have. What's a good client to them? What's a bad client to them? And just bring an awareness around that. Run them through the questions, like, for example, like Dan Kennedy's questions. You ask your sales team, so why was your client up late last night? Why did they call you 4 in the morning and in a panic? What was going on? And learn these things, because this really forms the ideal or not ideal client that you might go after. Okay, and of course, similarly, you'd want to interview customers. So this is the 5th tip. So interview customers and prospects to discover what they like or don't like, of course, about your product, your service, process, or even your industry. Maybe you're an accountant and they come to you just because they have to. You know, I have friends that are accountants. I shouldn't say it that way. Okay, and of course there are tools out there that really help us dig. For example, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of this, the personality profiling. Tony Robbins has his own version of this. Is really phenomenal, but there are publicly available ones as well. One of them is that I've used is through Crystal Knows. I'm not sure, and just so you know, I have no affiliations at all with Tony Robbins or Crystal Knows. Has anybody used Crystal Knows? And it's really an incredible tool, and it's full of different personality profiling tools that you can use for yourself. And once you have account them, and say you're in say LinkedIn, you go to somebody's profile, and Crystal Knows tells you their personality profile and gives you insights how to talk to them, or how to present to them, or how to ask them questions, which is absolutely gold. I'm curious if you've heard of Crystal Knows.
I personally have heard of Crystal Knows, and I've only briefly used it. It's something I want to kind of use a little bit more. It seems quite an interesting tool, a little bit weird and creepy, as
they all are.
I don't know. Yeah, that's it. The older I get, the more that technology, even that I've grown up with, sort of freaks me out a little bit. But in terms of what it can do, it does sound pretty phenomenal. Yeah, we've had no one comment yet whether they've used it, but yeah, it's something I'm personally looking to sort of delve into a little bit more. And sorry, just to take a slight side jaunt, you were talking a lot about building a customer persona. And we had a question from Marlene. She said, can you create a buyer persona but we'll call it customer persona at the moment, for internal purposes, like internal communications in HR, for example. And that's why I kind of wanted to just flip the word a little bit from buyer to customer, because I guess if you are working in HR, your customers are the entire company. And from what you were saying, you know, find out what's keeping them up at night, you know, what are the good and bad things. So yes, personally, I think you can create a customer persona for, you know, for internal use within your company. What are your thoughts on that, Randy?
I think you could create one for your boss if you wanted to. Quite honestly, yeah, really, or your spouse.
Oh.
Okay, so maybe we'll
just don't tell them.
But yeah. The idea is the more you get to know what them, the better your relationship happens. So if you could imagine, if you were even having a dialogue with your spouse or your partner, the more you listen, the more you pay attention, and the better that communication goes. It's no different from going out and doing business. It's good communication is what this all boils down to. It's the avoidance of spamming them or mass marketing them. You do individual communications on a bit of a robust level.
Yeah, I like that. I like that thought as well. Is, you know, with your partner, that you consider. I guess we all subconsciously do that. Build a kind of a mental persona of, you know, if you're a good partner, that is, you know, you remember their likes, their dislikes. You know, how much sugar they might have in their coffee. Do they like cream? Do they like, you know, oat milk? Something, you know, very low level, but you know, because you'll have people that, you know, they're really on that type thing within a relationship, and you'll have someone who's been with someone for 5-10 years and they've still put sugar in their coffee, and they're like, why do you do that? You don't listen to me. And so they're getting their partner persona completely wrong. So yeah, I guess what we've learned today is, you know, whether it's a buyer, customer, personal, partner personas, it's what you were just saying. It's dig, get that information. The information's out there, and just collate it together so you can be either selling better or be a better partner. I like that. Absolutely. I like that way of thinking.
Yeah, and I think that this is probably what's overlooked the most is people just think of them as target or audience. They're not thinking of them as people. And that when we start thinking them as people, it changes the whole conversation. We start to have real conversations and not just buy my stuff conversations.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Anyway, I'll let you get back on.
I was just thinking, when it comes to the crystal nose, something that I discovered in there that was really a game changer for me, and I just really just trialed it about 3 months ago just to check it out. And what happens? I had been trying to reach out to this person on LinkedIn for probably 2 years, and I never got a response. And I never tried to sell anything. I just kind of said hi, friend, stuff like that. And what I realized is that when I visited the profile and Crystal Nose popped up, it defined the person as somebody who was get to the point. So my being friendly was actually a put off because he didn't want to chit chat. He wanted to know what I was doing. So I could have acted, hey, I have this for you. Do you want to buy it? And he would have responded. But I tried to be nice first. And so so this is the value of understanding people are people and not everybody's the same. And it also goes to the point of taking a look at our personas and realizing that they're representations, not exact. So it gives us a target to look at or a conversation to have. But it doesn't mean you're excluding or it has to be that. You always have a little wiggle room because people are people and we're all a bit different.
Awesome. And just quickly, we've had a question coming from Hayden J. He's asking, how often do you revisit a persona? Because obviously habits change. And this sort of, going to throw two questions in here. Because this other question from Johan links quite nicely. Did you or have you found any huge differences in personas pre-pandemic and now? So the two questions are nicely linked there. what should companies be doing now, where it's like, well, 6 months ago, a year ago, this was our customer, our buyer, and now actually we might need to revisit it. So yeah, how often?
Yeah, that's an excellent idea. So I would say anytime that there's something happens like COVID, or you change your product, or you notice something, a trigger event before it happens, you need to go back and just review and make sure it's still accurate. And almost day to day, I'm always paying attention. If I start to see trends, and I'm one of these guys who really watches trends, again, over time, I want to see if I'm getting more interest one way or more interest another way, or less interest, or somebody's responding to something. I want to know that, and I go back to my persona and I see, do I have to tweak that? And if I tweak that, then I go back and I start to optimize my content for that new information. Go back, optimize again and again. I will even rebuild my site if my audience starts to evolve.
Wicked. Hopefully that answered your question, guys.
Okay, yeah, so it's yes all the time.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, and we're not responding to a one-off. We're responding to something that's meaningful, something that's big. We see an obvious trend. There's a big event has happened. We've changed our product line. We've changed location. Something like this has happened. We've gone from a clothing line to a hat line. Then we need to revisit for sure, because we have a whole new persona in the case.
Of course.
All
Fantastic.
right. Okay, I have to share a little story with you guys. Okay, so way back in the 90s, mid-90s, I was working in ad agencies. That was before computers. Actually, I think computers were just coming out. I think we had a Mac SE, the little time when our office was floppy. We got two floppy drive a few months later. But anyway, back in the 90s, what we used to do with our personas at that time is take a cardboard cutout of the individual, and we put a name to them, and we write the name across the chest, just like this fellow has here, except of course we wouldn't do ourselves. Which, what would happen is every time we did an ad or an advertisement, we would look at that and we'd write our creative, that individual, imagining or envisioning that person as a human. And so we weren't just marketing, we weren't just doing an ad, we were doing an ad for somebody. So doing personas today is just the modern equivalent of that. Okay, yeah, just don't make it for yourself, of yourself. That kind of is kind of. All right. So a copy buyer persona must-haves, of course. We have demographics, so we have things like age, sex, income, etc. But I'd like you to spend more time digging into psychographic, those fears, desires, values, influences, needs, personality types, all these types of things, and layer on any insight you discover or see around their motivations and patterns in your data. Include wording around biggest challenges and their primary goals, so you know ultimately what they need to achieve, and then you work to help them achieve that. And that's the definition of having a business. Okay, and again, again, a reminder that buyer personas are people, ideal clients, or companies. And that's a clarification or thing a lot of times people will mix up or not sure which is which. Okay, and finally, we have a lot of resources. There are literally hundreds. I grabbed a bunch of them here. Of course, in the presentation, I have these as live links. So when we post it, I'm not sure if it'll be live, it'll be video. We'll get the link somehow in there. So we have SEMrush's marketing tool, which Tristam was about to demo. Tools like SurveyMonkey, Persona tool, which is by HubSpot, Dan Kennedy's Ultimate Sales Letter book, my own book, The Art of Flow, as well as a really interesting article I feel titled 12 Questions Your Prospects Are Asking, Whether They Know It or Not. Okay, that goes to the real psychology behind what motivates people to act. Check it on my website. It's a blog post and an offer. You can download it in PDF form. And of course, on SEMrush's blog, there's a persona article, and there's a link in the article to a buyer persona template that you can download and use, and it's freely accessible. Okay, of course, in those noted here, there's a vast range of tools, books, downloads, blog posts, and whatnot out there that cover persona creation. I encourage you to find, Google, whatever, and use whichever ones work for you. Okay, there are so many of them out there. There's got to be something that works for you. Hopefully one of the ones I've listed. And I think on that note, I want to thank you all for having me here today. I'm happy to stick around and take questions after Tristam completes the demo. If it's okay with you, I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much, Randy. It's been a fantastic presentation. We've had a few audio issues, but I think the general vibe and message has got across, which is, you know, quite simply, we have data, whether that's just simple Google Analytics or Google Search Console data, or if you're a business already which has customers, they are full of data. As you were saying earlier, Randy, you know, what are their fears, concerns? You know, we asked a question from Marlene earlier about, you know, for internal communications in HR, your staff or your customers, you know, they're full of the information and data that you need to build this persona and you know, to understand what you should be doing for them more. And just whilst I'm switching to my screen to do a quick demo, Randy, what would you say, this is from Karina, what would you say the 3 biggest mistakes in building a buyer persona is?
Not enough information. That's
not enough
number
information,
1.
Did you say?
Yeah, that's right. Not enough information.
Yeah.
And not looking at, not asking our customers, not talking to them. So we're just guessing or just looking at data. We need to talk to people. That's the big one. And I would say not going deep enough, not digging enough.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah. Let me
I think just one last thing is that maybe the real third one, because I think that I answered 2 of them. The third one would be that there's a reliance on demographics, not psychographics.
Yeah, no, I agree. Or a non-reliance on any of that, or a reliance on none of that information is probably part of the issue. But so I'm just going to jump into a quick tool that SEMrush has got live. So if you're looking to understand a bit more about who your customers are, your audience, etc., there's a neat little tool inside SEMrush. So if you have SEMrush and you open it up and you navigate to the Marketing Insights and then Market Explorer, I'm just going to show you an example of the New York Times here and what we can find out, really. So let me just make my screen a little larger so we can all see this. So what we've got here is we've got what's known as the growth quadrant, which helps you to visualize the competitive landscape. So you've got the traffic volume, which represents the current audience size, the traffic growth, which reflects the pace at which researched competitors expand within your market. And so we can see here for the New York Times, you know, we've got game changers. My screen's being a pain and won't scroll across, so I do apologize. Let me just, because I've got it way too large. Rookie error. And so, yeah, we've got game changers, you've got leaders, you've got niche players and established players. So if you're using SEMrush and you didn't know this tool existed, I'd highly advise you jump in here and start having a look at this extra data that you've got. And then what we can do is actually scroll down into sort of the share of visits here. And if you jump into each of these search bars, it starts to bring up here more of the total traffic information, and which starts to help you break down more about your audience, but also your competitors' audience, and start to understand that. And the section I really like is this section here. So you can see your in-market audience. You know, where are your, what do your audience like to do online, and also who is your audience? So, you know, for the New York Times here, 44% are female, 56% is a male audience, and that's for July this year. And so, you know, if you're sitting there going, well, I didn't have any of this data before, you do now, and you can really start to see, you know, we'll break this down even further here to the market audience of what the age is of that market audience. You creating content for the right audience. You know, you may have had a conversation internally, and I've seen these conversations happen where, you know, a company will say, oh, we think our client, you know, because we're a heritage business, our client is, you know, 45 to 55, etc. And it's mainly males. And then when you actually start to dig into some of this more robust data, you can actually start to see what the true figure is, not what, you know, and as what you said, Randy, earlier, what people think, their perception of what their customer is. So if you haven't used this tool, I really advise that you jump in here, have a look. It's really useful. You know, the team at SEMrush will be happy to answer any questions on this tool if you've got any further questions. But I just wanted to let everybody know, if you're using it or thinking of using SEMrush, this is available to jump in and really start to help build a lot of what we've been discussing today. So let me stop sharing my screen and see my fantastic face again. And let's just open it back up to the table and see what questions we've got. So we've got another question from Hayden. So personas can be initially created based on what we know, our customer data, within a few hours, and then revised over time. So I guess you're asking that as sort of a, can we do that type question? My feeling is, oh, there we go.
Sorry, guys, I was answering. I was listening to your presentation too. I'm a multitasker.
Perfect. But I forget, were you answering that in the comments? So I guess for anyone who isn't seeing the comments and maybe watching this back pre-recorded, if you could just sort of give a bit of insight on that.
Yeah, sure. Hayden asked about personas, time to create personas, and really my feeling is if we start with the data we already have, we could probably review it or write the persona in a few hours. And after that, it's continuous revision or refinement for the lifetime of that that persona or that product or that business. So I think they never really end if you're paying attention.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There was another one asked about a mistake, and that was a big one would be building personas around your products or services versus the people.
Yeah.
So I love behavior-based personas, and you know, when we have behavior-based personas, we only have maybe 3. Okay, we have our decision maker, we have our influencer, and then we have a referrer. And so when we have those 3, we can pretty well map any product or business service under one of those. And so if somebody has 15 personas, they're probably doing by product, which I would say is, you know, they really better have it dialed in.
Yeah.
They have a budget to support it.
But I think that's an interesting one. So I've worked in companies where it's not a straightforward, this is the buyer, you know, you sell a pen, and, you know, why does someone use a pen? And, you know, you work out their issues. I've worked for companies, I've worked for education companies where you'll have, because of the courses, they're directed to, you know, I guess kids of a certain age. They've left college, and these particular courses where they've left college and they kind of need to do a university style course, but they're not going to university. They're obviously out there looking for this information, but they're not the ones who are paying. It was their parents who were paying. So in that sense, you know, it is really fundamental to build more than one persona, and then sort of, in a sense, weaving those together, where it's like having a website or something that can translate that information. So you're pulling in, you know, the youngsters. So it's like, this is why you want to come and do this course. It's amazing, all these reasons, but then flipping it slightly because, you know, you've got to get the parent to pay for it. So yeah, it's really dialing in those customer personas. So you don't attract one audience and put off the other one. You don't want to attract the student and put the parent off, and then they'll never go.
Well, that's what I'd say, is that's the pair. So we have our student would actually be the influencer, and the parent would be the decision maker. So you work with them together. So you inform the influencer even on how to talk to the parent. I find that fascinating because I still see so many companies. I'm so hung up on it. Still see so many companies that aren't even just opening up their own data and looking into that. I find it phenomenal, let alone sort of like trying to break it out into who's the decision maker. Because I guess, you know, just slightly going off on a tangent, you know, even say buying gifts, you know, you're buying your partner
a bag, some perfume, aftershave, something. You know, there's still those sort of buyer personas there. How do you draw someone in that, you know, this is the right product for that partner if they haven't necessarily said? So yeah, I think this is why this is so fascinating, sort of building buyer customer personas to really, yeah, as I say, hone in on the different stages. Well, we're almost getting to the top of the hour. Randy, thank you very much for presenting today. It's been awesome. If you could just leave us with 1 or 2 takeaway points, stop me from rambling. What would your 1 or 2 takeaway points be from today, you know, that someone can go and start executing after this?
Well, quite honestly, it's really get to know them as human beings. And then when you develop your persona, you base it on behavior, not on products and services if you can. It's really going to be much more powerful. And then you have real, essentially one-to-one communications, even though you're doing it in mass. So that's the big one. Second one is don't trust your gut. Do the data, do the research.
Fantastic. And last but not least, how can people find you if they have any more questions or want to find out more about this new journey that they might just be descending on with, you know, in their department or within their company?
Sure. Well, of course, people would come back to this presentation, but I'm available, just my name, Randy Milanovic, in LinkedIn and Facebook, and also via Twitter at kayak360. That's 360.
Perfect. And for anyone watching this now, this is going to be, it will be pre-recorded or sort of put back up online on the SEMrush Live channel. So if there's anything you missed, you can go and rewatch it. Or if you are watching this and it's not live, hey, I hope you enjoyed it. Do, you know, find Randy online if you've got any further questions because you weren't able to ask your question live. Or drop me a message. I'm fascinated about this as well. So I'm at Tristam Jarman on Twitter. So come and find me if you've got any more questions. But that's all the time we've got for today. Thank you very much. I've had an absolute blast. Randy, thank you. Everyone in the comments, thank you. If you liked the video, please give us a thumbs up. If you didn't, give us a thumbs down, but let us know why, because we're always here to improve. And don't forget, like and subscribe to the SEMrush Live channel and give the video a little share if you want. Why not? Help someone out, make their day. So bye for now. And Randy, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tristan. It's great being on.
See you later, guys. Bye.